devastating secret: when the millionaire followed her nanny home, everything changed forever. It was a quiet evening in the affluent neighborhood of Oakwood Estates, the kind where money flowed like water and secrets lurked behind every manicured hedge. The air thrummed with mystery, each shadow stretching longer as dusk fell. In one grand estate, an unusual spectacle unfolded. A wealthy millionaire had taken it upon himself to follow his nanny, a seemingly innocent act that would unravel the very fabric of their lives forever. Nina, the nanny, was a whirlwind of energy, a young woman with laughter that sparkled like sunlight on the surface of a lake. She had been with the Davis family for years, expertly juggling the chaotic demands of 2 children and their high-strung parents. But there was something about her late-night routine that sent shivers down the millionaire's spine. Night after night, he noticed her slipping away, her silhouette fleeting against the backdrop of their opulent home. Was she meeting someone in secret? The more he watched, the tighter his chest grew. The weight of unknowing pushed in on him like a vice. Then, one fateful night, he could no longer contain his curiosity. He slipped on his coat, the chill biting at his skin, and followed her down the winding street. The thrill was electrifying, yet a gnawing anxiety clutched at his gut. What he discovered next would change everything. As Nina moved farther away from the estate, her posture shifted. It was as if the carefree nanny became someone altogether different. He stayed a few paces behind, heart pounding and breath quickening, pounding against his ribcage like a caged animal. He turned a corner and caught a glimpse of her talking to a man dressed in dark clothing, his face obscured by shadows. They were too close, too intimate, laughter bubbling between them. The millionaire felt a sharp pang of betrayal, followed by a retreating chill down his spine. What could they possibly be discussing? Hope mingled with dread. At that moment, he could only wonder how deep the rabbit hole went. Before we continue, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The night felt thick as he stood frozen, a single thought crashing through his mind: Nina was not who she seemed. She turned to the mysterious man, a flash of something familiar passing between them, unseen but palpable. The millionaire's heart weighed heavy, but curiosity clawed at him, urging him to stay. What had he just uncovered? And more importantly, what was it leading to? As the moon cast eerie shadows on the pavement, he remained hidden, a voyeur to a reality that threatened to unearth secrets best left buried. The night had only just begun. The wind howled softly, echoing the turmoil in the millionaire's heart. He felt like a ghost, simply observing, unable to tear his gaze away from the scene unfolding before him. The shadows seemed to thicken as the man leaned closer to Nina, their laughter fading into something more intimate, more dangerous. The way she tilted her head back, exposing her throat to the night sky, sent an uneasy shiver coursing through him. What was happening? Each fragment of their conversation slipped just out of earshot, tantalizingly close yet frustratingly far. He strained to catch even a whisper, but all he could hear was the thumping of his heart, a relentless drumbeat of betrayal and confusion. Suddenly, the man placed a hand on Nina's shoulder. The gesture, seemingly benign, ignited a firestorm of anger within him. He felt the heat rise to his cheeks, and instinctively tightened his grip on the edge of the brick wall behind him. Every instinct urged him to storm out and demand answers then and there, but a dark curiosity held him captive in the shadows. Nina's eyes sparkled with a joy that felt foreign, and in that moment, the millionaire was struck by a shard of realization. This was not just a loyal nanny. No, this was someone with a life of her own, filled with emotions, connections, maybe even secrets he couldn't grasp. The facade she wore during the day vanished in the moonlight, and that concept terrified him. A sudden burst of laughter erupted from the couple, shattering the tense silence. It drew the millionaire's attention just as the man leaned closer, dangerously close, whispering something that made Nina's face light up like the stars above. He could feel his gut twist. he wanted to scream, demand clarity, to understand the bond they shared, a bond he never knew about. He couldn't stand there any longer. But before he could turn back, Nina startled and looked quickly past the man, scanning the street. Their eyes locked for a fraction of a second, but it felt like an eternity, a silent acknowledgement that sent chills racing down his spine. In that instant, the world around him melted away. He was no longer just an observer. He was entangled in this web of deceit and intrigue. Nina turned back to the dark-clothed figure, a homecoming of sorts. As they resumed their private conversation, the millionaire stepped backward, heart racing, needing space to breathe. He turned sharply, retreating into the darkness where the shadows enveloped him like a shroud. He was torn. Part of him wanted to confront her, to expose the truth he had discovered, while another part blanketed him in guilt. Would tearing down this facade reveal more secrets? Would it crush her, ruin everything he thought he knew about her? As he staggered away from the scene, the cold night air felt suffocating. Questions swirled around him like autumn leaves in a storm, filling his mind with doubts. All his previous assumptions were laid to waste. Had he misjudged Nina all along? Then it hit him, a chilling thought that sent ice through his veins. If Nina had secrets, what else was hidden in the shadows of their lives? With every step, the feeling of being watched crept back, heavier now, as if the darkness were alive, breathing down his neck. Somewhere nearby, a distant siren wailed, a reminder that the night still held dangers unseen. Stopping abruptly, he glanced back over his shoulder toward that flicker of light behind him where Nina and the man stood, where trust began to splinter like shattered glass. The millionaire dug his hands deep into his pockets, the cold seeping into his bones. The bitter taste of uncertainty filled his mouth. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. What would he do next? What lay hidden in the secrets that were now sprouting like weeds in his mind? As he turned the corner and hurried home, an ominous thought lingered. Once the truth started to unravel, would it be escapable, or would he become ensnared in the very secrets he sought to unveil? The chill of the night seemed to seep deeper into his bones as he hurried through the empty streets, his mind ablaze with the revelations he couldn't comprehend. Each shadow that flickered in the lamplight seemed to twist into a dark reminder of what he had just witnessed. He picked up his pace, desperation clawing at his throat. Home felt like a prison now, an uncomfortable reminder of the fragile world he had thought was stable. The creak of the old door startled him as he entered his mansion, the familiar scent of polished wood and leather now feeling suffocating. He kicked off his shoes and paced the marble floor, every echo of his footsteps a stark contrast to the silence that engulfed him. The shadows in the corners loomed larger, transforming the spacious rooms into claustrophobic confines. What if Nina hadn't just been a nanny? What if she was someone entangled in a dangerous web, far removed from the simple life he had envisioned for their small family? He thought of her laughter, the way she moved, the every little thing that now seemed tinged with secrecy. A shiver raced down his spine. Suddenly, a soft rustling in the kitchen drew his attention. He froze. Was it his imagination, or was someone really there? He held his breath, straining to hear. A familiar voice broke the tension. "Sir, are you okay?" It was Clara, his housekeeper. Her eyes were wide with concern, noticing his erratic movements. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he registered that he must look like a madman. "I'm fine," he stuttered, though nothing could be further from the truth. He forced a smile, but it faltered, giving way to the tumultuous storm inside him. "Just tired." Clara didn't buy it. "You look like you've seen a ghost. Your hands are shaking." He dropped his gaze to his trembling fingers, trying to mask the panic rising within him. "I just need some air." He brushed past her, heading towards the balcony, the iron railing a thin barrier between him and the chaos swirling below. The cool breeze caressed his face, a stark contrast to the hot whirlwind spinning in his chest. Outside, the night sprawled endlessly, and he could still hear the laughter that had seeped into his soul like poison. It gnawed at him, begging for answers. A flicker caught his eye movement in the shadows below. His heart amplified its rhythmic thumping, the pounding echoing in his ears as he strained to see. Suddenly, the figure emerged, and to his shock, it was Nina, slipping quietly down the side streets of his neighborhood, her silhouette luminous against the dim moonlight. "What are you doing?" he whispered, though her distance made it pointless. Instinctively, he followed, driven by confusion and the need to seek clarity. This wasn't just about him anymore. Nina had drawn him into something bigger, and he couldn't afford to turn away. As he trailed behind, adrenaline surged through him. A few blocks down, she turned, and he risked a peek around the corner. His breath caught. The man from earlier waited at the edge of the street, their eyes locking in a moment that felt charged with unsaid words. Just as they exchanged quiet, reassuring gestures, a loud crash shattered the night, a store window breaking. The two jerked, startled. In a heartbeat, the reckless joy that had just illuminated Nina's face vanished, replaced with something hardened and resolute. What was happening? Every instinct screamed at him to confront her, but he froze, heart racing as he realized he was witnessing a side of Nina he never knew existed. Fear and fascination fused within him, creating a potent cocktail of emotion. Then, suddenly, she turned, as if sensing his gaze, a knowing look in her eyes that twisted his gut. At that moment, he understood this was more than a chase, it was a crossroads. She could either slip away into the shadows or turn and face the truth of her double life. Would she choose to reveal the secrets shadowing her? Or would the night swallow everything whole? He was about to find out. The moment hung in the air like a thick fog, silence settling around him. His mind raced. What was she doing with that man? That brief connection, the way they seemed to communicate without words, sent a chill through him. It felt wrong, deeply unsettling. Nina took a step forward, edge of the street bathed in moonlight. The man, who was he? Why was she meeting him in the dead of night? That image of her laughing with their daughter, inside the warmth of their home, clashed violently with the scene before his eyes. She seemed so alive, so different, and yet so distant all at once. He could call out to her, yet something held him back, a moth afraid to touch the flame. What would he say? Nina! What's going on? The words felt pathetic, desperate. As he fought to control his breathing, the night grew still, the darkness wrapping around him like a cloak of dread. Just then, the man reached out, and Nina recoiled slightly. A flicker of fear crossed her face. Was it for him or for the man? His heart raced as instinct told him to step in, to protect the woman he thought he knew. But he hesitated, confusion knotting his insides. With a sudden movement, she took a breath and leaned in, whispering something to the stranger. He couldn't hear the words, but the expression on her face morphed into something steely, a resolve he hadn't seen before. It was as if she was trying to summon strength from thin air. Then there it was, the unmistakable glint of a weapon strapped to the man's hip. A shockwave jolted through him. She was caught up in something dangerous, something more than babysitting or what he had ever imagined. His heart pounded louder now, and he could almost taste the adrenaline seeping through his veins. Before he could stop himself, he stepped from the shadows, out into the open. Nina! The shout ripped through the silence, echoing off the buildings. She whipped around, eyes wide with surprise. The man turned too, face darkening as he assessed the interruption. What are you doing here? Nina's voice was laced with panic as she stepped hastily away from the man. Who is he? He demanded, the urgency spilling from him. Stay back. Nina's voice pierced the air, sharp like glass. It was a tone he'd never heard from her, filled with authority and fear. His heart sank as he realized her warning was for him. The man's expression shifted as he stepped forward. You don't want to interfere, trust me. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. It was a promise of something ominous lurking behind him. Trust you. Rage mingled with fear in his thoughts. Nina, what's going on? Who is he? His mind raced back to the broken window, the chaos that was unfolding. Go home, she said firmly, but he saw her eyes flicker from him to the man, back to him. A protective instinct flared. He knew she couldn't walk away from this on her own. He took a step forward, anger pushing him. I won't leave you like this. Nina hesitated, a brief look darting between them. You need to, just trust me. The weight of her words landed heavy, stirred with a finality that chilled him. He could see it in her eyes, she was trapped, and he was desperately trying to reach her. Then, something shifted. The cold edge of reality broke through as sirens drew near, faint but growing louder, illuminating the sharp tension in the air. "Get out of here!" she urged him, voice shaking. But before he could process what was happening, the man turned and bolted into the shadows, leaving them both in an uneasy silence. Nina stood frozen, expression conflicted, like a puzzle at the edge of completion, pieces scattered all around. The sirens grew closer, but the real chaos was still between them. "What were you involved in?" he asked, voice thick with dread. "Nobody is safe anymore," she murmured, as if she were talking to herself. His heart stopped. Was this bigger than they had imagined? With nowhere to go but deeper into the fray, he felt the ground slip away, questions clawing at him. What had Nina gotten herself into? More importantly, could he save her from the secrets surfacing like ghosts? From the dark? It was time to find answers. But would they survive the night long enough to uncover the truth? The sirens wailed closer, slicing through the uneasy quiet like a knife. He could see the flashing lights creeping down the street, a kaleidoscope of urgency that tethered him to the reality of the moment. His throat tightened, a primal instinct screamed at him to flee, to take Nina with him, but her eyes anchored him. The turmoil within her mirrored his own confusion and fear. "Nina, please," he urged, stepping forward again. "We need to talk. Now." Her gaze darted behind him, toward the direction the man had fled. "You shouldn't have come here," she whispered, terror flaring in her voice. "He is in a world you can't understand." "What do you mean?" Confusion warred with desperation in his gut. "Who is he really? Is he threatening you?" The way she hesitated, drawing in shaky breaths, told him everything. "We don't have time," she finally said, voice trembling. "But it's not what you think. I was trying to protect you." "Protect him?" The word struck him like a slap. "You were laughing with him. Were you ever going to tell me? Were you going to keep this a secret forever?" "Stop!" she snapped, fear ricocheting off her words like bullets. "Not here. The more you scream, the more you put us both at risk." He processed that, looking nervously down the road. Shadows moved swiftly, and the weight of a decision pressed heavily against him. "Then what do we do?" Nina took a step closer, the desperation spilling into her gaze. "I've been working for him, against my will," she admitted. "He is part of something dangerous. I made a mistake, and now he is threatening my family. I had to play along. That doesn't make sense. You should have come to me." His voice was rising, rage at the entire situation overflowing. "I could be helped." The look in her eyes was a knife twisting deeper. "You don't understand. If he knows you're involved, he'll come for you too. You have to walk away. I promise, just go home." But what she didn't know was that walking away wasn't an option anymore. A flicker of doubt crept into his mind. Trust had always been a cornerstone between them until now. Suddenly, a dark figure emerged from the shadows, and his heart skidded. It was the man, the one who had turned and fled. Fear radiated from him, pushing Nina behind him as he instinctively shielded her. "Thought you could escape that easily?" The man taunted, his voice low and menacing. "Your little game is over." Nina gasped, her body tensing beside him like a tightly coiled spring. "No. You promised," she whimpered, conviction flickering in her eyes. "What do you want?" he snapped, forcing his voice to remain steady. "Just leave her out of this." The man laughed, a cold, chilling sound. "She is already in this deep. There is no going back." Nina shuddered behind him, eyes wide with dawning horror. "I can fix this," she whispered, desperation thick in her voice, reaching for the man almost pleadingly. "I just need time." "Time?" The man scoffed, his grip on something heavy intentional. "Time is something you don't have, sweetheart." A panic seized him as he realized the situation was spiraling. The sirens were almost upon them. This would turn into chaos. How could he get her out of this? Without thinking, he grabbed her hand. "We run now," he declared, an urgency coiling through his veins. But before they could make a move, a shout erupted from down the street. "Police! Everyone down!" The all-too-familiar uniformed figures burst onto the scene, guns drawn. Instinctively, the dark figure turned to flee again. "No!" he yelled, but it was too late. The man vanished into the darkness, leaving only questions in his wake. As the police raced toward them, sirens wailing like banshees, he stood frozen, adrenaline pumping through him. "Now what, Nina?" he breathed, feeling a swell of panic rising. She gazed up at him, the weight of the night bearing heavily on both of them. "They need to know everything if they're going to keep us safe." But just as he thought they might be free to speak their truth, the police turned their focus on him. "You! Step back!" He felt the air thickening, fear and urgency colliding. Did he trust the authorities? Did Nina? Everything was at stake in that moment: their lives, their futures, and the real depths of the secrets that might pull them apart forever. And just as he opened his mouth to protest, the sound of footsteps echoed ominously behind them. The darkness was closing in again. What else was lurking in the shadows, waiting to emerge? The police approached, their shouts cutting through the tension like a knife. He could see their faces, hardened and serious, as they grouped together, weapons aimed in their direction. The air was crackling with impending chaos. "Get on the ground!" one officer shouted. Nina's grip on his hand tightened, almost painfully. Panic surged through him. He turned to face her, their eyes locking in a frantic understanding. "What do we do?" "Just listen," she whispered urgently. "They're here to help. We have to tell them everything." Before he could argue, the officers moved closer, forming a barrier between them and the shadows. His heart pounded, but not just from fear. It was the weight of her words, the burden of the truth. Could he really trust the police after everything Nina had said about the man? "Are you okay?" an officer asked, his voice firm but not unkind as he stepped forward, scanning them both for injuries. He hesitated, torn. "I don't know." "Step back!" another officer hollered, aiming their weapon at him. The world seemed to shift. Suddenly, he was the enemy, standing over Nina, a target. "We're not the threat," he shouted, his voice cracking. "You need to understand. She's in danger." There wasn't time to ponder the steel in the officer's eyes, the authority weighing down the moment. They weren't looking just at him, they were assessing the scene, the chaos, the fear. "Stay calm, and tell us what's happening," the first officer urged again, glancing back at his partners. Nina stepped forward, trembling but determined. "I was forced to work for a man who is involved in something dangerous. He threatened my family to make me comply." Every word jabbed into his chest, wrapping him tighter in a cocoon of dread. "Who is he?" the officer asked, taking notes. "I don't know his name. He's connected to some underground network. He's dangerous," she forced out, her voice shaking but clear. In that moment, the sounds of sirens faded, the world outside their bubble dissolving into white noise. The officers exchanged glances, confusion and concern flickering across their faces. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from down the street, drawing everyone's attention. A figure darted into view, shadowed and frantic, the dark silhouette of the man who had been chasing them. The police officers turned, weapons raised, ready to engage. "No!" he shouted, instinctively shoving Nina back behind him. "Don't shoot!" But chaos erupted. The man bolted, the coming adrenaline crashing like waves as the officers pursued him. Screens bounced off the walls, a cacophony of frightened onlookers flooding the street. "Stay here!" one officer barked as they took off, leaving him standing there, paralyzed by the unfolding nightmare. Nina's breath came in rapid bursts, her eyes wide with a fear he couldn't fathom. "He'll come back. You don't understand. This isn't over. We need to get out of here." Panic surged within him. Suddenly, one of the officers returned, breathless. "We've got him cornered." The urgency in her tone cut through the haze. "We need every civilian to clear the area." The words hit hard. There was no safety net, only the chaos spiraling out of control. If they didn't move, they might get caught up in whatever was coming. He grabbed Nina's hand, pulling her down the street as the police yelled for people to disperse. The scene transformed into a tumult of flashing lights and echoing commands. "What do we do now?" he asked, trying to force calm into his fraying nerves. "Trust me," she said, her eyes narrowing as they moved closer to the alleyway. "I know a way out." He hesitated, so many emotions roiling inside him: doubt, urgency, a desperate need to protect her. But he understood that moving forward together was the only choice. As they ducked into the alley, the echoes of chaos began to fade behind them. Yet, he couldn't shake the feeling that danger lingered just out of sight. What lay hidden around the next corner? And as the darkness enveloped them, he realized this was far from over. The truth was still out there, waiting to be uncovered. What would happen when they eventually caught up to it? The alley was narrow and damp, the smell of garbage and something metallic creeping into his nostrils. He moved cautiously, pulling Nina along, her fingers digging into his palm. With every step further from the chaos, he could feel the weight of their situation pressing down harder, like a shroud of impending doom wrapping around them. "Over here," Nina whispered, guiding him toward a rusty fire escape at the end of the alley. It jutted out precariously, its rungs coated in grime. He hesitated, glancing back toward the mouth of the alley. He could still hear the faint shouts of the police, gunshots piercing the air like bolts of lightning in a storm. "Are you sure it's safe?" he asked, his voice just above a whisper. She paused, searching his face for reassurance. "We don't have a choice. He's after us. If we stay here, we're trapped." He swallowed hard and nodded, though doubt churned in his stomach. They climbed quickly, his heart racing with every rung they ascended. Just as he pulled Nina up and over the ledge, he heard the unmistakable sound of hurried footsteps approaching the alley. "Go," he urged, shoving her through the window of the second-floor apartment they had just entered. He followed closely behind, landing softly on the floor. Inside, the room was bathed in darkness, shadows swallowing the corners. They peered through the filthy window, barely breathing. Sirens wailed outside, and he could see officers frantically searching the street, weapons still drawn, the urgency palpable. "What now?" he asked, panic rising higher inside him. Nina's eyes darted around, searching, thinking. "We need to find a way out to the next building. They might not look up, but we can't stay here." He agreed, but just as they turned to explore, the faint sound of laughter drifted into the room, a sound that froze their blood. Not just any laughter, a chilling, echoing laugh that he recognized all too well. She felt his body tense beside her. "You know him?" He nodded, fear congealing in his veins. "It's him," he mouthed, horrified. Before they could react, the door creaked open. A figure emerged, silhouetted against the light, causing both of them to hide instinctively behind the old couch. He squinted through the gloom, struggling to see, the laughter echoing off the walls like an omen. Come out, wherever you are," the voice taunted, smooth and sinister. "I just want to talk." Nina's eyes were wide, filled with terror. "What do we do?" she whispered. His mind raced, options dwindling to almost nothing. "We wait, for now," he replied, feeling a lump rise in his throat. "We can't face him directly." They held their breath, the weight of their dread growing. He felt her trembling beside him, the heat radiating off her body, a stark contrast to the cold fear finding its way into his bones. "Little girl, you know you can't hide forever," the figure called, moving further into the room. The laughter became more intense, cruel. He could hear footsteps trailing closer, shuffling on the hardwood floor. "Stay quiet," he murmured, feeling for something, anything, to defend themselves with. The moment stretched, a taut wire ready to snap, each heartbeat a ticking clock. Then, suddenly, without warning, the lights flickered on. He jumped, adrenaline pumping. In that brief moment, their eyes met in a silent pact. They had to act, or they would never escape, but as the lights illuminated the room, his heart dropped. Standing there, grinning with a twisted satisfaction, was the man, the very embodiment of their nightmares. "Ah, there you are." With those words hanging heavy in the air, the truth pulled taut, ready to unravel. What awaited them next was unknown, but one thing was clear: everything was about to change. What would the man demand next? And would they have the strength to meet his dark intentions? A predatory smile twisted the man's lips, casting an almost grotesque shadow across his face. His eyes glinted with a malevolence that stirred a primal fear deep within both of them. They could do nothing but watch, paralyzed, as he leaned casually against the doorframe, arms crossed, surveying the room as if he owned it. "Did you really think you could run from me?" he taunted, his voice smooth yet dripping with malice. It was a sound that clawed at their resolve, making every nerve scream to flee. Nina's grip tightened on his arm, her breathing shallow. "What does he want from us?" She trembled, a whisper of desperation threading through her question. "He didn't have an answer." Each word from the man felt like a fresh blow to the gut, a reminder of their dwindling options. They needed a plan, and fast. But the presence of the man hung like a storm cloud, threatening to burst. "Let us play a little game," the man cooed, stepping further into the room. "It'll be fun, I promise." He moved towards them slowly, deliberately, savoring the fear that coiled tightly around them like a snake preparing to strike. "You're insane!" he snapped, suddenly finding a flicker of defiance. "Insanity, my dear boy, is a matter of perspective," the man replied, his smile unfaltering. "What I see here is simply survival. You'll find that I'm not the enemy, at least, not yet." He paused, allowing his words to sink in, relishing their confusion. Nina's eyes darted around the room, searching desperately for a way out. In that split second, he saw a flicker of hope and fear cross her face. "We need to get out," she urged. "There has to be a back way, but why leave so soon?" "The best part is just about to begin," the man crooned, his voice now a dangerous purr. He pulled something from his pocket, something shiny catching the light. A knife, sleek and menacing. Without thinking, he lunged, grabbing the nearest object, a heavy glass vase, ready to defend them against the twisted figure now closing in, confidence oozing off him like poison. "Don't move!" he shouted, heart pounding in his ears. Nina flinched, her wide eyes locked onto the knife. The man chuckled, unfazed by the threat. Now. Violence isn't the answer. But let us make this interesting. A dilemma, perhaps? Show me how far you're willing to go to protect one another." "What are you talking about?" he demanded, trying to suppress the quaking fear threatening to break through his facade. "Simple." The man shrugged, his demeanor unsettlingly calm. "You choose one of you lives, the other well. Let us just say your precious little armory isn't going to save you both." He pointed the knife toward Nina and back to him. 10 seconds to decide. Will it be the helpless girl or the brave boy? Tick-tock panic surged through him as he looked at Nina's face. Her fear mirrored his own, but beneath the surface, he saw something else, a steely determination she didn't know she had. Would he really sacrifice her? But did he have any choice at all? As the countdown began, every second clawed at his resolve, daring him to choose, challenging the very core of what he believed. Who was he meant to save? The question burned in his mind, more suffocating than the knife's ominous glare. Just then, a loud crash echoed from outside, followed by frantic shouting. Was it the police? Had they found them? What was that? The man hissed, suddenly alert. The sound of footsteps sprinting echoed on the stairs leading up to the apartment. The moment stretched taut like a wire, and in that breath, everything felt like it was suspended in time. Think carefully, the man warned, eyes narrowing, glancing quickly toward the noise. With the seconds slipping away like sand through his fingers, he could feel the weight of the decision bearing down. What trusted instincts would guide him now, and would he summon the courage to act before it was too late? 5 seconds. Fear blazed, but he knew one thing for sure: he wouldn't go down without a fight. In a heartbeat, the choice was no longer about one or the other, it was about all or nothing. But in the swirling chaos, Would they find a way out together, or was it already too late? The man's eyes flicked toward the door, calculating. In that brief moment, a spark of hope ignited in him. He couldn't let this monster keep them captive. He couldn't let Nina become just a pawn in a twisted game. Wait! He shouted, surprising even himself with the ferocity in his voice. Stop! You don't have to do this. The man laughed, a cold, hollow sound that echoed off the walls. Oh, but I do. You see, this is the very essence of power. You, boy, have a chance to save someone you care about. Or do you? His gaze pierced through them like ice, testing their resolve. Nina's breath began to quicken. Please, just let us go. We can give you money, anything. She offered desperately. Money? He sneered. That's cute. No, I'm not interested in cash. I want something more valuable. The knife twirled in his fingers, a dance of danger, and then he lowered it ominously toward Nina. I want your loyalty. Your trust. The thought of making a choice between them twisted his insides. The footsteps outside were getting louder, echoing like thunder in his ears. Who would come? The police? A neighbor? Could he use this moment to escape? Just a little longer, the man said, smile unbroken. 5 seconds could change everything for you. Nina's trembling hand gripped his, grounding him. Don't listen to him, she whispered. We'll find a way. Together. The man straightened, intrigued. Together? A cute concept, but is your bond really that strong? What would you do for each other? 3 seconds left. Panic clawed at him. We need to get out. He yelled, but the words felt empty, the fear constricted his throat. Nina took a bold step forward, her eyes fierce. If you think we betray each other, if you think we're that weak, you're wrong. You don't know us. Her voice shone with courage he hadn't anticipated. The man stopped, a flicker of uncertainty creeping into his eyes. For the first time, he seemed less in control and more like a hunter caught off guard. Interesting, he said slowly, re-evaluating his strategy. Perhaps I'll have to adjust my approach. But before he could act, there was another loud crash, this time, the unmistakable sound of a door splintering. The threat of outsiders loomed, tangible and close. The man's face paled, a flash of anger flashing across his features. Enough of this, he spat, shifting his grip on the knife. Nina and he seized their moment. He drew back his arm, ready to throw the vase with all the strength he could muster, desperation fueling him. Now! He shouted. With a powerful heave, he unleashed the vase. Time slowed as it sailed through the air, shattering against the wall next to the man. Glass cascaded like deadly rain. The man stumbled back, instinctually shielding himself from the shards. It was all they needed. His shot at freedom surged adrenaline through their veins. Run! He screamed, grabbing Nina's hand and bolting past the chaos. They dashed down the hallway, the sounds behind them shifted to chaos, screams mingled with the shouts of whoever had entered their nightmare. Heart pounding, he pushed against the door at the end of the corridor. But it wouldn't budge. Damn it! He cursed, shoving harder. The noise intensified, footsteps closing in. He could almost feel the icy breath of the man's malevolence on his neck. Help me! Nina cried, panic snapping through her voice. With 2 quick kicks, the door finally gave way and they stumbled outside into the moonlit night. But freedom came at a price. The street was empty, but the shadows loomed long and dark. Where do we go? She gasped, scanning the opulence of the neighborhood, now dulled with their fear. We can't stop now, he urged, pulling her along. The chase was far from over. They took off down the street, adrenaline surging, but he couldn't shake the feeling that the true danger was still waiting in the shadows. How would they evade him now that he was hunting them in earnest? Suddenly, out of the corner of his eye, he spotted a figure moving towards them. Stop! He yelled, heart racing anew, hoping it was help, not another twist in their grim reality. But in the Flicker of hope, dread coiled back into the pit of his stomach. Was this a savior, or yet another pawn in the maniac's elaborate game? The figure approached quickly, the sound of hurried footsteps resonating against the asphalt. He turned towards Nina, urgency in his eyes. "Stay behind me," he whispered, instinctively positioning himself in front of her. But as the figure drew closer, hope flickered alive. "Josh?" The voice cut through the night air, familiar yet surreal. It was Clara, the housekeeper. Relief washed over him, like a life raft amid a stormy sea. "Quick! This way!" she urged, waving them over. No hesitation, they sprinted together towards her, desperate for safety. "What are you doing here?" he gasped, disbelief tangling with gratitude. "I heard the commotion. I couldn't just stand by," Clara explained, urgency threading through her words. "We need to get to the car. Now!" Without looking back, they followed Clara to the sleek sedan parked a few blocks away. The weight of their fear pressed against him, yet there was a surge of adrenaline spurring his movements. "What about the police?" he asked, sliding into the back seat with Nina next to him. "The officers are still trying to contain the chaos. We have to make a clean getaway first," Clara insisted as she slammed her door shut and revved the engine. The car tore through the empty streets. Nina gripped his hand tightly, their hearts pounding in sync. "Where do we go?" she asked, searching his eyes for answers. "Anywhere but here," he replied, voice strained yet resolute. The night unfolded around them, dark yet charged with possibility. He thought of the threat swirling in the shadows, but so too was a sense of hope that they could find a way to untangle the mess that had ensnared their lives. Clara's voice broke through their silence. "From what I gathered, this isn't just about Nina anymore. The man is part of something larger than all of us. We need to be careful." He nodded, his thoughts racing. Clarity was now a fragile thread connecting them all. But how do we stop him? Where do we even start? Nina's grip tightened as she interjected, "We need to expose him for who he really is. If he is involved in something dangerous, then we gather evidence." Josh chimed in, the idea starting to crystallize. "We take this to the authorities. They need to know. The police can help, but we must be cautious," Clara advised. "If he is connected to a larger operation, we can't simply walk in without a plan." Finally feeling a surge of purpose, Josh felt the remnants of fear starting to dissolve. "Then we gather everything we can first. We approach this smart, not reckless." The car slipped onto the freeway, leaving the sprawling houses of Oakwood Estates behind. The highway stretched before them, open and full of possibilities. As they rode in silence, each lost in their thoughts, a sense of unity began to form, a bond stronger than mere circumstances. They were in this together, fighting against a dark tide threatening to consume them. "Josh?" Nina broke the silence again, her voice soft yet firm. "I'm sorry for dragging you into this. I never wanted any of this to happen." He turned to face her, their eyes locking. "We all have our secrets, Nina, but the only way out is together. We'll face this. I promise." Slowly, a smile tugged at the corners of her mouth, and he felt warmth rise in his chest. The road ahead might still be fraught with danger. The man would come after them, that was inevitable. But for the first time in a long while, Josh felt hope mingling with that fear. It was tangible, a pulse of life at his fingertips. As the stars began to twinkle above across the vast night sky, ideas of freedom danced in his mind. The fight was far from over, but they were no longer alone. They had each other, a fierce determination coursing through them like electricity. In the distance, the glow of the city lights beckoned. They would strategize, gather their strength, and soon, they would expose the truth. Victory wasn't just a word, it was a choice to face the tides of darkness and carve a new path together, and nothing would stand in their way. Now is your chance to join our journey. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to keep the algorithm happy. Flood the comment section with your reactions and wild theories about this ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support matters.